JC, it is now time to make our picks for week 11 in the Canadian Football League. I went 3-1 last week, even with the debacle that was the Saskatchewan-Ottawa game, which I think we'll dub the command center game because that's all anybody was talking about after the fact. It wasn't the Riders, wasn't the Redblacks, it was just command center and random people being on the bench and brawls almost coming to terms. What was your record last week? I must ask.
I don't look at such things anymore, Hodge. All my picks are right until they're not. That's just the way it is.
That's a fair way to think about it. I'm pretty sure you were 2-2 last week, which is respectable, but let's try to get in the win column a little bit more this week in week 11. And without further ado, let's dig into all four games here. The Calgary Stampeders are 3.5-point favorites as they get set to host the Ottawa Redblacks on Thursday, as the visitors will have a familiar QB at the helm. Veteran Jeremiah Masoli will make just his sixth start in 3 years, replacing Drew Brown, who suffered a foot injury against Saskatchewan last week. The Stamps have also shaken up their offense, with Cam Eccles going to the practice roster and four-time All-Star center Sean McEwen hitting the 6-game injured list with a hand injury. Can the Redblacks pull off an upset without their number one gun under center?
I think they can. And just to be frank, the Redblacks are the better team straight up between these two right now. But that's not the reason why I'm picking them, or the only reason why I'm picking them. I think Jeremiah Masoli being under center for this game is going to mean something to his teammates. I know it pulls on our heartstrings, anyone who watches this league, to see him come back and get a start. It's going to do the same thing for the guys that have watched him grind it out for the last 3 years. Obviously, we saw what happened 2 years ago with that low, dirty hit by Garrett Marino, a devastating leg injury that required surgery, that got infected. He had to battle back. I mean, his leg was in jeopardy. His career was in jeopardy. Works his way back and then suffers an Achilles injury in his very first game last season. Back to rehab, a whole other year lost. We thought at the time that we may never see Jeremiah Masoli step onto a CFL field ever again. Here he's going to get this start. I think the Redblacks are going to rally around him as a result, do whatever they can to make this a successful one, and they'll pull the upset as a result.
I am on the other side of this game. I am going to take the Redblacks to cover. If you get Calgary under 3.5, I like that. But if it's more than a field goal like it is here, I'm going to take the Redblacks to cover, but the Stampeders to win. Calgary has been a different team at home. I do like the change-up in that receiving core. They might miss Cam Eccles a little bit, but he's had a case of the dropsies. I like getting Jalen Philpott in that spot, who I think is a little bit more explosive. We've obviously seen his twin brother Tyson break out with the Montreal Alouettes. I think Jalen, it's only a matter of time before the same thing happens with him. I also, as much as you're right, it would be wonderful to see Jeremiah Masoli go off here. No, we're not supposed to cheer for anybody in the media, but Jeremiah Masoli, ultra likable guy. He's been in this league for over a decade. You can't find a single person who has a bad word to say about him. But he has lost Khalil Pimpleton, who has hit the 6-game injured list. I think that is a big downgrade to the Ottawa Redblacks receiving core. He was the deep threat who could take the top off the defense. And I also question what's going on with the Ottawa Redblacks offensive line. Ciro Hogan-Saint-Don, who has been a 2-year starter for them at center, is a healthy scratch for this one. Eric Starzala, former 7th-round pick at the University of Guelph, will make his first career start. So when you add up some of those other changes around Jeremiah Masoli, the fact that he's probably going to be rusty, again, he has played a grand total of 1 game in the last 2 calendar years because he got hurt on week 4 in 2022. That's not a lot of football. I like the Stampeders to win this one, albeit in a close contest. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are short home underdogs to the Montreal Alouettes on Friday night, as Trevor Harris, AJ Ouellette, and Jameer Thurman are all expected to be back in the lineup for the home side. The Riders are coming off a controversial tie in the nation's capital, while the Alouettes have won back-to-back games over the Lonely Tabbies, led by young quarterback Davis Alexander. It remains unclear if Fajardo will return this week from a hamstring injury to take on his old team, or if Alexander will be under center for the Montreal Alouettes once again. JC, who you got in this one?
I have been informed, Hodge, by our colleague Justin Dunk, that I have earned something of a reputation in the Queen City for picking against the Riders every week. Somehow it's become interpreted that I have some sort of vendetta against them. So let me set the record straight. I am picking the Saskatchewan Roughriders to pull a massive upset this week over the top seeded Montreal Alouettes. I think it matters that these guys are all getting healthy at the right time. It's going to be a big boost for them to have Trevor Harris in the lineup, to have AJ Leck in the lineup, to have Jameer Thurman back there at middle linebacker, maybe even the biggest of the bunch. But more importantly, Davis Alexander has looked great in the 2.5 games that we've seen of him. But now we have a sample size. And Corey Mace is one of the best defensive minds in the CFL with one of the best defenses at his disposal. He is going to be digging into that tape. He finally has enough to really work with. I think they're going to challenge this kid in ways he has not quite yet been challenged, and they're going to pull the victory out.
I'm hoping that Cody Fajardo plays in this game, if for only the storyline, right? Cody Fajardo has yet to return to Regina. The Alouettes did not play in Saskatchewan last year, and he actually missed the only meeting between the two teams in 2023. I would love to see him in this game, but as of the recording of this show, we don't yet know what his status will be. That being said, I'm with you, JC. I'm also taking the Riders to complete this short upset. Listen, Davis Alexander, full credit to what he's done. But the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the only defense he's played in the CFL thus far, ranks 9th in offensive points allowed and 7th in offensive net yards allowed. This unit has struggled all season long. The Riders, I think, are better up front. I think they are 100 times better on the back end than the Ticats. I think the Ticats really struggling in that linebacking core. Their secondary, I don't think, is very good. The Riders' secondary, one of the best in the CFL. The linebacking core probably is the best in the CFL. So I am happy to take the Riders to win. I'm happy to get the points too. No discredit to the Alouettes. I think they are a worthy 8-1 team. I think this will be a low-scoring game with the Alouettes defense being sensational. But with the healthy guys that the Riders are getting back, the home field advantage, it's tough to overlook those factors. So I am taking Saskatchewan to win, and I'm more than happy to take the point. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are short home underdogs to the Edmonton Elks on Saturday night in Steeltown, with the possibility that both teams could have new quarterbacks at the helm. Hamilton has officially benched the CFL's leading passer in Bo Levi Mitchell, installing second-year pivot Taylor Powell as his replacement following a 300-yard relief outing last week. Meanwhile, Canadian sensation Trey Ford is day-to-day with a rib injury and could give way to McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Which QB situation do you have more faith in?
Well, if Trey Ford is able to get on the field this week, which I don't think he will, I would be taking the Edmonton Elks without question in this game. Wouldn't have to think about it, close my eyes, say the name, we could move on, get done with it, get back to our lives. But I think McLeod Bethel-Thompson is going to be at the helm, and that gives me a little pause based on how the Elks look to start the season and what it feels like in that locker room where a lot of people seem to be on the Trey Ford bandwagon and not a lot of people on the MBT bandwagon. With that said, I don't think Hamilton's QB change means diddly squat. That was not their issue. Bo Levi Mitchell was the leading passer in the CFL. He was also leading in touchdowns, and while he led in interceptions as well, I think that's more a testament to everything they've got around him, because guess what? Taylor Powell played 55 minutes of that football game last week. He didn't win either, even though he had impressive numbers. Just like Bo Levi Mitchell, they didn't even get close. This is a bad Hamilton football team that has not shown me anything. So even if the great Trey Ford is not able to be on the field and dipsy doodle around the defense, I still think the Elks can get it done by a small margin if they have MBT at the helm.
I also suspect that Trey Ford will not play this week, and I think that's probably long term in the best interest of Edmonton, right? They needed to be healthy down the stretch. There's, with something like ribs, no reason to push him into action before he is ready and as close to 100% as at least a professional football player could be. Also, because McLeod Bethel Thompson hasn't played badly this year, he's had a couple back-breaking interceptions. But we talked just earlier about how Hamilton's defense has struggled. Edmonton's defense is arguably worse. Edmonton's defense currently ranks ninth in net offense allowed. They rank eighth in offensive points allowed. For that reason, if Trey Ford does not play, I will be taking the Hamilton Tiger Cats to win this game. Taylor Powell, I thought, looked good against Montreal, the best defense in the CFL. If he can do well against Montreal, I think he could potentially rip the Edmonton Elks defense here to shreds. I think McLeod Bethel Thompson could keep it close. Wouldn't shock me if they won this one, but I will take the Tabbies if Trey Ford does not play. If Trey Ford does play, I'm more than happy to take the Elks here and eat a point or two if I have to. But I do have, in the battle of two win teams, the Ticats coming out ahead if it is MBT under center for the Edmonton Elks. The BC Lions are short home favorites over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Sunday as Nathan Rourke is expected to make his 2024 CFL debut under center. The Lions signed the former most outstanding Canadian to a lucrative 3-year deal following his 2-year excursion to the NFL, and the last time we saw him up here and healthy, JC, he was tearing opposing defenses to shreds. The Blue Bombers are also expected to get a big name back in the lineup as Kenny Lawler is set to make his return from a fractured arm. JC, with the season series between these two rivals on the line, which team is going to come out on top?
It's going to be the BC Lions, and it's because they have signed Nathan Rourke. I know we should temper expectations for a guy that's coming back on less than a week of practice with what is essentially a new team. I mean, as much as we want to talk about the offense being the same and it's the same coaches, that receiving core is wildly different. Keon Hatcher was really the only guy who was a stud when Rourke was also under center. Alexander Hollins was just sort of breaking into the league in that fifth receiver role. Everyone else essentially in that starting unit for BC is new since Rourke departed. So maybe there's some chemistry issues. Maybe it takes a while for him to readjust to the Canadian game. But the gap between what we saw last week with Jake Dolegala under center, where he couldn't hit anything deep. He couldn't make any explosive plays, where he was standing in there like a big, tall statue. And Nathan Rourke and what he is able to do with getting the ball out of his hand quickly, with making explosive plays down the field, with using his feet and his legs, I think he's going to be highly motivated. I think he's going to be fired up. And I think the team around him is going to be electrified as a result as well. The Bombers are starting to turn the corner. Kenny Lawler being back helps them, but they haven't shown me anything in their passing game thus far with Zach Collaros this season that could defeat what I expect that we will see from Nathan Rourke, particularly in front of a home crowd that is going to be upwards of 30,000 and electric with the return of their golden boy native son. So I'm taking the Lions here. Regardless of what the points would be, they would be my pick. I am happy to ride with BC.
I am bullish on the Bombers during the second half of the season. Taiwan Garbutt has been a very nice find for them at defensive end. They're getting Celestin Haba back from injury. They've suddenly got a rotation, including Willie Jefferson, who I think has put together some really nice games lately. I'm also extremely bullish on Kenny Lawler. I think Kenny Lawler is the best receiver in the CFL. When healthy, his catch radius is unlike any other target we see north of the border. That being said, I'm on the Lions here. I have to be. And I do expect Nathan Rourke to show some signs of rust. You can't just pop in on Wednesday and be a stud on Sunday. I don't think that's possible. That being said, I think you hit the nail on the head, JC, when you talked about the lift that this team is going to get with Nathan Rourke under center. This team is galvanized. This team is enthralled. It is excited. And how could you not be, right? The last time Nathan Rourke was on the field, he made a very mediocre offensive line look brilliant. He made average receivers look incredible. BC's offensive line is actually probably worse now than it was 2 years ago, but the receivers are much better, right? Justin McInnis has been unbelievable. Alexander Hollins has been great. Keon Hatcher is knocking off the rest, but we know that he is a top 5 receiver in this league. Jordan Maximic's offense put up a grand total of 0 points and 4 first downs the last time it played Winnipeg 2 weeks ago. I expect it to be a different story in front of a raucous crowd, and I don't think that the impact of this game can be understated. The winner gets the season series. If you're the Lions, if you win it, you pretty much have buried Winnipeg's chances of finishing first in the West. If you're Winnipeg and you win it, you're now 2 points back with the season series. It's game on. If you have plans on Sunday night, folks, cancel them. Stay home. Watch this game. It should be a great one, arguably the game of the season so far, especially when you add in a player like Nathan Rourke and a weapon like Kenny Lawler. Watch it, enjoy it, and enjoy the rest of Week 11, folks. Thank you, as always, for joining us. For our picks here at 3 Down Nation, for JC Abbott, I'm John Hodge. We'll see you next time.